I am Gry Hasselblach, the key AI ethics expert of the International Outreach for Human-Centric AI initiative, in short, InTouchAIeu. And this is an initiative launched by the European Commission's Foreign Policy Instrument and DG Connect in collaboration with the European External Action Services to engage with partners at a global level on regulatory but also ethical matters related to AI. And we're together with the Slovenian presidency of the European Council and the European Commission organizing a high-level conference on artificial intelligence that follows up on the EU's regulatory AI package. And in this connection, I'm so fortunate to have with me here, or at least we're connected, across the Atlantic with wires and digits, Mr. Cameron Kerry, who is N.R. and Andre H. Tisch Distinguished Visiting Fellow at the Brookings Institution. And Mr. Kerry is a global thought leader on privacy, artificial intelligence, and cross-border challenges in information technology. He was a former general counsel and acting secretary of the US Department of Commerce, where he, for example, led the Obama administration's work on consumer privacy and also the engagement with international partners, including the European Union. And currently he is specifically at the Brookings Institute. He's focusing on concrete steps towards international cooperation and convergence on AI with a joint project with the Center for European Policy Studies. So welcome, Mr. Kerry.
Thank you, Gry. It's good to be here. Good to be with you.
So the world has been undergoing an immense transformation with big data for a while now, impacting economies, modes of governance, and also our cultural and social spheres. Now, the emergence of artificial intelligence designed to make sense of big data in real time will only accelerate this impact on a global scale. So my first question to you, Mr. Kerry, is which kind of global dialogue on big data and AI do you think we need to steer the impact of AI?
Well, it's not one dialogue. We need multiple dialogues, networked dialogues, and they need to be broad-based, involving all stakeholders, not just between governments, but including civil society and academia and industry. You know, scientific research today is global, involving teams working across borders, across institutions, across disciplines. And that's particularly true with AI. You mentioned global scale. AI operates on a global scale with very large teams that need a lot of data, a lot of computing power, and are using open source code, distributed computing. So the response needs to be similar. It needs to be operate across borders and across disciplines. And I think the downsides are not just the stuff of science fiction novels. You only have to look at China's digital authoritarianism to see the dystopian possibilities playing out in real time as the government increases its control of information and applies the tools of technology to increase its control politically and socially. So democratic and like-minded countries need to present a consistent and a coherent alternative that harnesses the benefits of AI in ways that are consistent with their values and ethics. So at the Forum on Cooperation in AI, the project with CEPS, we started with what was a transatlantic discussion, but quickly expanded to include Australia, Japan, and Singapore, all democratic countries actively developing AI. But some 60 countries around the world have AI policies, working towards those developments. So we certainly need to broaden the conversation to include others. We need many conversations. We need to address concrete cases that harness expertise and come up with research-based solutions as well as values-based ones.
Speaking of a global, maybe we could call it a global data sharing infrastructure, if we want to call it that, for AI, what if we had to think of one like that, what would it look like? Which type of international collaborations would we need?
Yeah, well, that's a challenge, Gry. It's one of the important challenges in this area. For so much of artificial intelligence policy, it's a green field. There's the opportunity to, make the rules together. But when it comes to data governance and data, we have a couple of challenges. There are mature laws and regulatory systems, like the GDPR and other privacy and data protection regimes around the world. And there are enormous challenges of legacy systems and digitization of existing information, and bringing consistency to data collection. For example, sensors that are placed out in the environment that can operate in different ways and inhibit effective use of that data. So we need to work on those issues, both by dealing with the issues of data flows. I think in the long run, the United States, I hope we will see a new framework for transatlantic data transfers, but I think in the long run, the United States needs to step up with comprehensive legislation. That's something I've been working on since I was in the Obama administration. I think correspondingly, the EU, as it undertakes its review of the GDPR under, I think it's Article 79, needs to look at the impact on AI and the issues that have been raised, for example, by the European academies about the impact of GDPR on the flow of scientific and medical research information. And we also need to be working on the technical issues, both with funding to help improve the digitization of information, to develop standards around sensors and formatting of data, and to conduct research on important technologies like federated learning that can enable the protection of data while also facilitating access to the information that's contained in that data.
So speaking of, or thinking about what you said before about the transatlantic relation between the US and the EU that do share democratic values that could benefit the evolution of this socio-technical AI infrastructure, which concrete steps toward cooperation do you recommend?
Yeah, well, that's something that we have been looking at in the collaboration with SEPS, and have a report coming out that reflects our recommendations based on over a year of conversations with government officials and experts. And we focus on three key areas. One is regulatory cooperation. And I think there particularly, we see that between the US and the EU, there's significant overlap in a risk-based approach that's reflected in the AI regulation. It's also contained in White House policy statements that have continuity as policy. And I think that offers a very rich line of issues to look at in terms of looking at common approaches to risk assessment, to red lines in common for certain uses that may should be prohibited or have a moratorium, to look at sectoral approaches, to joint international sandboxes. I think an important foundation for that sort of collaboration is to commit to communication and collaboration in developing those policies. No unilateral steps without that sort of international conversation. We need to be working towards making a broad set of rules together. The second is the important role of standards development organizations, which have just been enormously important in harnessing scientific and technical knowledge in this area, and providing research-based, technically sound soft regulation. So we need to flesh out the next steps in standards development around issues, particularly such as auditing standards, which will be important to enforcing regulatory policies, and important to addressing a lot of the issues that have been raised about potential outcomes from AI. And the standards conversation also offers an opportunity to bring China into the conversation in a constructive way. There's enormous technical expertise there. China has stepped up its role in standards development organizations, sometimes to try to game it to its own advantage, but operating within the framework of research-based approaches, and it has something to contribute. Finally, we look at joint research and development, which provides opportunities to do a number of important things at the same time. To solve or bring AI to the solution of global issues like climate change, like health, like economic development. And at the same time to work together in ways that will have action forcing effect on collaboration and dealing with regulatory policies, to really tackle use cases in necessarily concrete ways that will have to address many of the issues of data governance, of ethics, in a very specific context. It's like having a great big international regulatory sandbox that does good for humanity.
Thank you, Mr. Kerry. So global development needs a global response with a very particular approach based on shared values. So thank you for your time, and
thank you again. I appreciate it very much.